Hey, what's up, guys? It's Randall from OddsJam back with you today to talk to you about the college football playoff. And in the first game on New Year's Eve, we have Cincinnati taking on Alabama at 3:30 Eastern. That game will be on ESPN. Cincinnati comes into this game 13-0, and Alabama and Heisman winner Bryce Young come into this game 12-1. With their only loss being at Texas A&M in a very tough road game for them this year. Cincinnati comes into this game, like I said, undefeated. They played Notre Dame on the road this year. They beat them 24-13. At the time, Notre Dame was ranked fifth. They played Indiana the week before. They won that game 38-24 on the road as well. In that game, Desmond Ridder did not play the best in that Indiana game, but they found a way to win. They had a scare against Navy, won that game 27-20, and then they pretty well rolled the rest of the season. Had a close game against Tulsa on November 6th, where they won that game 28-20. If you take a look at the Alabama schedule, like I said, they lost at Texas A&M. Early on in the year, 41-38. Probably should have lost the game at Auburn, where they ended up winning that game in overtime. But nonetheless, they were able to squeak out a victory. Bama's had quite a few close games this year. They beat Florida on the road 31-29. They beat LSU 20-14. They beat Arkansas by a touchdown. Close game against Auburn, like I mentioned earlier. And then we all know what happened in the SEC championship, where Georgia finally played a real opponent and Alabama pretty well took it to them. So, in this particular game, like I said, Cincinnati comes into this game 13-0, Alabama 12-1. The current line right now is Cincinnati plus 14. 13.5, depending on what book you're using. It looks like at FanDuel, you can get Cincinnati plus 14 right now. You can get Alabama minus 13 on Bet Rivers. That would be the best number there. So the total on this game sits around 57.5, 58, again, depending on where you're shopping. It looks like Caesars has the total under 58, and the best number out there is 57.5 at Bet Rivers. As well as FanDuel. So in looking at this game, I mentioned earlier that Bryce Young won the Heisman. Something just to point out, I don't know what the correlation is, and maybe it's just total coincidence, but prior to last year, the winner of the Heisman did not win or had not won the national championship since 2015. And that was when Derrick Henry won the Heisman. And Alabama went on to win the national title. But Devontae Smith last year won the Heisman, and obviously Alabama won the national championship. So, who's to say that that's the case this year? But it's definitely worth pointing out. I'm not sure why that is, but I think it's definitely, like I said, I think it's definitely worth noting. The last time that happened was 2020 when Alabama won the 2021 college football title. So they beat Ohio State 52-24 in that particular game. But in this game, I'm looking at the total here. I used Kenny White's ratings. He's a former odds maker out in Las Vegas. He makes this game Alabama -7, and he puts the total right around 58-59. His prediction is Alabama 33, Cincinnati 26. So I think there's some definite value here on Cincinnati plus the points. I think that this game is going to be much closer than people expect. I mean, this has been the year of the upset in college football. And I really think that this Cincinnati team has the defense to keep them in this game. And, it'll just be interesting to see how they perform. This is the very first year that we, get the quote unquote little guy in the college football playoff. And, I would love nothing more than to see Cincinnati make this a game or even win outright, just so we can show the committee that we need more teams in the college football playoff. These bowl games that are going on currently, the Bad Boy Mower Bowl. I mean, I don't even think that's a bowl, but the bowl games are just ridiculous. They have no interest to me as a college football fan, and we need to see more teams in the playoffs. So I think Cincinnati plus 14 here is definitely worth a look. I also like the total under 58 in this game. I think if Cincinnati covers the 14, I think it's definitely going to go under. I think those are definitely correlated. Not to say that you want to parlay those together, but if you're into parlays, that could be something to look at. Cincinnati plus 14 and the under 58. But my official play in this game and what I'll be betting is Cincinnati plus 14. Like I said, I think this number is just a tad bit too high. As I mentioned, Kenny White makes this number right around Alabama -7. So Cincinnati plus 14 for me in this spot against Alabama. And then, the game that I'm most looking forward to is Georgia, Michigan for a variety of reasons. This game will be at 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. And, Michigan comes into this game. They're a very popular public dog, which normally is not a good thing whenever you are sports betting. If you're on the popular dog, it never seems to end well. However, I just think this line is too high. Looking at Kenny's ratings here again, he makes this game Georgia -2. He's got a final score projected 26-24, and in this particular game, totals 45, and Georgia -7.5. So when you look at, who these teams have played this year, I mean, Georgia played the opening game of the year that everybody watched. Everybody thought was going to be a great game. Georgia-Clemson. Georgia won that game 10-3. Not a good performance offensively. I'm not sure that, Stetson Bennett is going to be able to lead this Georgia team against Michigan. It just really, like I said, I mentioned this in an earlier video when I talked about a Michigan future and the value that it had, or the positive expected value that it had. And it just kind of just feels like the year for Michigan. I understand that that's not a handicapping angle, but it's, it just does. It kind of feels like the year that Michigan gets it done. And Harbaugh finally, comes through for the Michigan faithful that have been ready to fire him, just about every year after every game against Ohio State. But, looking again, like I said, at Georgia's schedule, not played too many close games. In fact, their closest game this year was that first game of the year. They came out the next week, stomped UAB 56-7, handled South Carolina very easily 40-13, blanked Vanderbilt 16-0 or 62-0. Georgia, Arkansas the following week 37-0. So, Georgia, I understand that they play in the SEC, and that's always an argument for people when it comes to the college football playoff is, these SEC teams, they play tougher competition. They're more prepared, blah, blah, blah. And, Alabama, I mean, they took it to Georgia, and that was, in my opinion, the first real tough competition that Georgia saw outside of Clemson. I mean, I guess you could argue, Arkansas, but I mean, they beat them 37-0. You want to argue Auburn, who took Alabama down to the wire. Georgia beat them 34-10. But when you look at Michigan's schedule, I mean, I think it's far more impressive. Very beginning of the year, not a lot of people expected them to cover against Western Michigan in the opening game. Michigan was -17.5, 47-14 final. Absolutely dominated that game. Dominated Washington the following week. Their one hiccup this year was at Michigan State in a game that they absolutely should have won. They blew that game, but I mean, they've got a road win at Wisconsin. They've got a road win at Penn State. a very convincing road win at Maryland. And then obviously we all know they beat Ohio State in the last game of the year, and then beat Iowa 42-3 in the Big Ten championship. And if you know anything about the Big Ten, whether it's college basketball, college football, it's very, very hard to win on the road. And, Michigan was able to do that this year. Like I said, they beat Wisconsin on the road. They beat Nebraska on the road. They lost to Michigan State in a game they should have won. They beat Penn State on the road. And then, like I said, they beat Maryland on the road. So I think in this game, and, Kenny agrees as well, there is definite value on Michigan. Plus the 7.5. It looks like you can get +8 right now on Bet Rivers. As far as the total goes, total of 45, 44.5. If you're looking to take the over, Kenny has that at around 50. You can get the over 44.5 on FanDuel. And, like I said, I just feel like, this is the time for Michigan. And I think they've been disrespected all year. When you look at Michigan this year, they are number 1 in the land against the spread, 11-2, covered 84% of their games. They're just continue to be, disrespected by the odds makers. And I think this line is far too high in this particular spot. I think everybody believes that, Georgia's just going to come into this game pissed off, and, maybe they do. But I think that Michigan definitely has something to prove in this game. So I'm going to be on Michigan in this game, plus the 8. I already have a future on them to win the college football playoff, so I'm not going to dabble anymore in the money line. Hopefully, if, they lose that game, they do end up covering, and I can at least cover my my bet on the Michigan futures that I have. But Michigan +8 looks good. And, from a value standpoint, if you're using Kenny's ratings, the over 44.5 has some definite value as well. So Cincinnati +14 against Alabama with a slight lean to the under, and Michigan +8 with a slight lean to the over are my plays for the 2 games on New Year's Eve. And, hopefully, I would love nothing more than to see Michigan against Cincinnati in the national championship back at Lucas Oil Stadium, where Michigan won against Iowa. Just kind of looking ahead a little bit here, and I'll wrap this video up. Using Kenny White's ratings, if Alabama were to play Michigan, he would make Alabama right around a 4.5-point favorite. I believe that line right now, if you look on DraftKings, look ahead, is right around 6. And if Georgia were to play Alabama, he would make Alabama right around a 2.5-point favorite, which I believe, is what that line is. If Michigan were to play Cincinnati, he would make Michigan right around a 2.5-point favorite. I believe that line is actually Michigan -7 on the look ahead. And then if Georgia were to play Cincinnati, he would make that line Georgia right around -4.5. So, like I said, hopefully, I would love nothing more than a Michigan-Cincinnati college football championship. I was actually hoping that would have been the game in the 2-3 matchup, but the committee had other plans. We're not going to, of course, match up 2 SEC schools in the college football playoff, because we need to try to get one of those in the championship, of course. So, go Michigan. Let's hopefully cash that future, and hopefully we can cash a ticket on Cincinnati +14 as well. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll be back next week.